25th, 2026. And today we're going to talk about Hansi Flick's request to Barcelona as far as signings for this summer transfer market. Also, Julian Alvarez leaving the door open for a Barcelona move, or a potential Barcelona move, I should say. And finally, Ansu Fati could be headed to Sevilla. We have a lot to discuss, so let's begin. Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. My name is Boo. I will begin this video with some pretty amazing news because, well, first I want to share with you a video before we talk about this news. But let's watch Gabi's reaction when he found out that he had been called up to the Spanish squad for this 2026 World Cup. This was Gabi at the Barcelona installations. And that's when they announced his name, that he was part of the squad. You could just see the total happiness, the elation on Gabi as he finds out that he will be part of the 2026 World Cup. Let's watch that again because I think it deserves to be watched twice. Look at that, ladies and gentlemen. Look at that. What a beautiful moment. What a beautiful video of Gabi. Absolutely happy to find out that he was part of the Spanish squad for the 2026 World Cup. To me, honestly, it completely filled me with happiness. Not only because he's a Barcelona player, and of course I want to see Barcelona players in the World Cup, but honestly because what it means for Gabi to have been called up to the World Cup, especially after everything he's been through. Because let's not forget, he was a regular with the Spanish national team. He was a starter with the Barcelona team, but then he suffered that very serious injury. He tore his ACL. He damaged his meniscus. He had to undergo surgery to repair all of that. He was out for an entire year. Then he finally comes back during this season, starts playing, and then bam, another injury, another surgery to his knee to repair some of the debris in his knee. He was out again for, I think it was 5 or 6 months, and now he's back again. So almost a year, more than a year and a half of being out, 2 surgeries, all that rehab, all that physical therapy, all that time away from the team, from the field, from both Barcelona and the Spanish national team, and now having to claw his way back into Barcelona starting spot, and well, now clawing his way back into the Spain's national squad, and he will be going to the World Cup. And of course, as you can see, incredibly happy Gabi, because of course, this is just the culmination of all that hard work that he had to go through to get to this place, all that, you know, very difficult months of sadness, depression, of pain, of doctor's visits, of surgeries, of physical therapy. It's all now paying off because Gabi is back. Not only is he back with the Barcelona squad, but now back with the Spanish national team. Now, speaking of Spain's national squad, let's look at the official list of Luis de la Fuente, who has announced that the following 26 players will be part of the squad for the World Cup. In the goalkeepers, we have Unai Simon, David Raya, and Juan Garcia. Ladies and gentlemen, Juan Garcia, the Barcelona goalkeeper, the best goalkeeper of La Liga, the winner of the Zamora Trophy, will get his first call-up to the World Cup. Of course, that's the first Barcelona player there on the list. As far as defenders, you had Cucurella, Grimaldo, Pau Cobarci being the second Barcelona player being called up. Laporte, Marc Pubil, Eric Garcia with the very well-deserved call-up to the Spanish national team. Of course, Luis de la Fuente knows Eric Garcia pretty well. He was his coach in the, I think, under 21, under 19, under 17. He was his coach for different teams. Of course, Eric Garcia did win Olympic gold. So Luis de la Fuente, very familiar with him. And then we have Marcos Llorente and Pedro Porro. In the midfield, we have our third Barcelona player, which is Pedri, Fabian, Subimendi, of course, Gabi being the fourth player. Rodri, Alex Baena, and Mikel Merino. And for the attackers, we have Oyarzabal, Dani Olmo, which is the sixth Barcelona player on the list, Nico Williams, Jeremy Pino, Ferran Torres being the seventh Barcelona player, Borja Iglesias, Victor Munoz, and of course, the best in the world right now, Lamine Yamal, being the eighth Barcelona players. 8 Barcelona players being called up to the World Cup. And here you go. 0. Yes, you heard that right. 0 Real Madrid players. But they told us Dean Huijsen was better than Pau Cubarsí. But before that, they told us Asensio was better than Pau Cubarsí. When that didn't pan out, they told us it was Huijsen. Now, I don't know. They told us Alvaro Carreras was the best fullback in the world. I don't know. I don't see any of those guys on that list. But of course, you know, who's at fault for all of this? It's Negreira, right? It's Negreira. He's at fault for this list. It's Negreira who has prevented Real Madrid from winning any trophies these last 2 seasons. It's Negreira that's the reason why Real Madrid have 1.5 billion euro debt. It's Negreira who's at fault for their for the Bernabeu taking twice as long as it's supposed to take, for the construction costing double. It's Negreira's fault that the parking lot has been shut down and they're not going to be able to make millions off of it. It's Negreira's fault that the concerts have been shut down, so they're also not going to make millions off of that. And well, now Negreira is at fault for Luis de la Fuente not calling up any Real Madrid players because, of course, Barcelona paid Negreira and Negreira paid Luis de la Fuente. And this is how we ended up with 8 Barcelona players on the lists and yet 0 Real Madrid players. By the way, if you're wondering why am I discussing this list, because, ladies and gentlemen, this is a clear indication of Barcelona's superiority in Spain. 8 of their players have made it to the World Cup squad and 0 of Real Madrid's. This clearly explains how Barcelona have ended up winning 3 trophies last season, 2 trophies this season in Spain, and while Madrid have ended up with 0. If you want any more evidence, well, I don't know what else I could show you. Anyways, while we're still on the topic of the Spanish national team, of course, Marc Bernal has been called up as well, not as part of the list, but is part as a support player. Now, what does a support player entails? Well, Marc Bernal will help complete the training sessions during Spain's early camp in preparation for the World Cup. In other words, while the Spanish national team is training in Spain, is getting prepared for the World Cup, is playing friendly matches ahead of the World Cup, Marc Bernal will be part of that setup. He will train with the team. However, once the team does travel to the World Cup, Marc Bernal will not travel with them. So, of course, it's a shame Marc Bernal is not part of the squad. But, of course, this training with the World Cup team will help him gain some more experience, more growth, more development. And I have no doubt that Marc Bernal will be part of the squad in the future. Now, my question to you is, what do you think about this Spanish squad? Do you think any other Barcelona players should be included? For example, do you think maybe Gerard Martin should have been part of that squad ahead of maybe Laporte? Do you think maybe Ansu Fati should have been chosen ahead of Nico Williams, who has had a horrendous season? I don't know. You guys let me know down below in the comment section. Now, speaking of coaches, since we did just mention Luis de la Fuente, let's talk about our own, the one and only Hans-Dieter Flick, because the German coach has requested from Barcelona to make a signing this summer. And no, we're not talking about the center forward position. Of course, that is a request of his. But Flick has made another request, and that is he wants the club to find a new fitness specialist. Now, as you know, Thiago Alcantara has decided to leave the club, but he's not the only one as part of Flick's squad, or staff, I should say, that has decided to leave. Stefan Nope will also be leaving. So Flick now wants the club to find him a strong or a good fitness specialist, because he wants stronger physical preparation in order to win the Champions League. Flick believes that not only does this squad need some reinforcements, for example, in the center forward position, but he believes that the entire squad needs better and stronger physical preparation to win the Champions League. And as such, Flick has requested from Barca to look for a fitness specialist to help with that preparation. Now, what options does Flick have? One option comes to mind. Of course, this is not an option that Flick has necessarily requested. This is just me spitballing here. But a good option could be this guy. If you don't know who he is, Olger Brioch or Dr. Olger Brioch. I think it's Brioch, maybe Brioch. I don't know. Well, let's go with Brioch. Olger Brioch, he is Bayern Munich's physical or fitness specialist. He, of course, has worked with Hansi Flick, and he was part of Hansi Flick's staff when Bayern Munich won the sextuple. So, of course, this could be an option. He obviously has the skills, the experience, the knowledge, the know-how, how to prepare a squad and turn them into a sextuple winner, someone who knows Flick very well, and Flick knows him very well as well. So this could be a good option, but of course, that would mean Barcelona scooping him away from Bayern Munich. And of course, this also means Olger wanting to come to Barcelona. And of course, there's also the problem with Julio Toes, right? Julio Toes is the head or the head of the fitness department. So if Olger does join Flick's staff, he would have to work under Julio Toes, which of course is always a question, you know, is this guy going to want to come and want to work under someone, or is he going to want to run a department himself? That's always a consideration to keep in mind. But again, this is just me spitballing. Doesn't mean that this guy is actually on the list or that Barcelona consider him. This is just a name that I thought about when this news came up that Flick wants Barca to sign a new fitness specialist. Now, on to the next bit of news, and this is a huge one. Because, ladies and gentlemen, it's reported that Julian Alvarez has opened the door for a potential Barcelona move. Now, before we talk about Julian Alvarez's exact news about him opening the door to Barcelona move, we do have to talk about a different news that made the social media rounds today, a news that, well, kind of went viral, caused a lot of firestorms on social media. And it has to do not with Julian Alvarez, but with his agent, because Julian Alvarez's agent posted this following post on his Instagram page. It's the left post. It's a picture of a highway, right? No big deal. It's a highway, whatever. But then when you look at the sign above the highway, it's a blue sign. You see what? You see Barcelona. So it's the highway that leads to the city of Barcelona. And of course, when the agent posted this, well, this caused a lot of commotion amongst Atletico Madrid's fans, you know, especially with this whole links between Julian and Barcelona and all this talk about Julian possibly joining Barcelona. So after the whole post caused a lot of problems on social media, the agent decided to put his page on private. But of course, the damage was already done. Now, of course, if you look at this incident alone in a vacuum, you might think, oh, this is pretty stupid. This is just a picture of a freeway, of a sign. What the hell does that mean? Like, does that even mean Julian wants to join Barcelona? Of course, on its own, no. It's just a picture of a highway, right? But when you look at everything in conjunction that's been happening, the multiple interviews where Julian Alvarez has been asked time and time again, hey, do you want to stay? Hey, do you want to leave? And every single time Julian's answer has been, we'll see. I don't know what the future holds. In football, everything is possible, right? This is not the words of someone who wants to stay at his club, right? Someone who wants to stay at his club would say, I want to stay, period. If you ask Lamine Yamal, hey, where are you going to be next season? He's going to say Barca. He's not going to say, I don't know. I don't know what football holds. I don't know what the future holds, right? Then you add to that fact that multiple people close to Julian have said time and time again that Julian would love to play at Barca. When you look at the fact that his brothers were seen in the city of Barcelona shopping for a home. When you look at the interview that we discussed yesterday where Marcos Llorente was asked, hey, does Julian want to stay? Does he want to leave? And he's like, maybe, I don't know, blah, blah, blah. Again, this is not the answer of a teammate who knows his teammate wants to stay at the club. And then, of course, when you look at this, the fact that the agent, amongst all these links, posts a picture of a freeway leading to the city of Barcelona, then you start thinking, well, maybe there's something behind it, right? Because after all, where there is smoke, there is fire. But that's not all. There's not all. If you want to add even more smoke to this fire, El Cholo Simeone, Atletico Madrid's coach, was asked, hey, what's going to happen with Julian? Does he want to stay? Does he want to leave? And this was his response. That's not a question for me. It's a question for Julian. He's old enough to know what he's going to do. And I imagine he's probably already made up his mind. So more smoke added to the fire, because here's First, we had the player himself saying, I don't know what's going to happen. Then we have Marcos Llorente saying, I don't know what is going to happen. So now you have the player, you have his teammates saying this, and now the coach. Oh, I don't know. Again, this is not the answer of a player that's for sure staying at Atletico Madrid. If you ask Flick, hey, where's Lamine Yamal going to be next season? He's going to say Barcelona. He's not going to say, I don't know. That's a question for him. His mind is made up, blah, 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 blah. Right? That's what Flick used to say about Lewy. And look where Lewy's at. He's leaving. So it's looking more and more likely that Julián will be leaving Atletico, especially after that news came out a few days ago that he's expressing doubts about the project that he's in. And well, yesterday, Fabrizio Romano reporting that Julián will not be renewing with Atletico Madrid, even though Atletico Madrid want to give him an incredibly high contract, a lucrative contract that would make him the highest paid player on the squad. So when you add all these things together, it's looking more and more and more and more likely that Julián will be leaving. Does that mean he will end up in Barcelona? Of course not. That's not necessarily, right? PSG are very interested, and they have the money to pay the 150 million euros that Atletico would ask for. Arsenal are very interested. They also have the money to pay that. So does it mean he could end up at Barcelona? Not necessarily. But is Julián coming to Barca now a higher possibility than yesterday? Absolutely. Because as I've said before, Atletico have no incentive to negotiate, right? Atletico have partnered up with Apollo Investments, this big investment group. They are pumping a lot of money into Atletico. They want to turn Atletico into these European giants. Part of that is, of course, signing world-class players to help Atletico achieve that status. And one of those signings was, of course, Julian Alvarez. He's their flagship signing. They just signed him a year ago, and they're not looking to sell him, They're looking to build a world-class squad made up of world-class players. The last thing you're going to do is sign a world-class player only to sell him a summer later. So Atletico Madrid have no incentive to negotiate for Julián. The only way Atletico Madrid will come to the table is if Julián says, I want to leave. And right now, Julián wants to leave. So does this mean that Julián is going to end up at Barca? No, but it definitely puts him a step closer. Now, of course, the rest will completely depend on the player himself. If he continues to pressure, if he continues to hint that he wants to go to Barcelona and eventually sits down with Atletico Madrid and says, I want out and negotiate with Barcelona, then, of course, this would be a much bigger possibility. But we're still a little bit away from that, but definitely a step closer towards Julián joining Barca. Definitely, he's a much, much step closer to him leaving his current club. Anyways, let's end today's video with the news about Ansu Fati because, ladies and gentlemen, the Barcelona Academy graduate has now a new option, which is to join Sevilla. Now, as you know, Ansu Fati has finished the season strong with Monaco. As a result, Monaco want to now activate the option to buy in his contract worth 11 million euros to keep Ansu Fati on a permanent transfer. Of course, all this would depend on Ansu Fati agreeing to a reduction in his salary because Monaco cannot afford his salary. It's incredibly high. But now a new option has emerged, which is, of course, Sevilla, which is, a team that Ansu Fati's father has said he would like to see Ansu at. After all, Ansu Fati did come up through Sevilla's academy before joining La Masia. Ansu Fati's father has a home there in Sevilla, so it would be a good destination for him. And, of course, the question is, why does Sevilla want Ansu? Well, Sergio Ramos, the Real Madrid former defender who initially came up through Sevilla, right? He's from the city of Sevilla. Sergio Ramos is now looking to acquire Sevilla alongside the investment group. I think it's called 511. They're looking to acquire Sevilla. They still have some steps to do. For example, they first have to submit financial guarantees before everything gets accepted. But Sergio Ramos and this financial group 511 are confident that they're going to be able to submit everything on time and that they will be able to acquire Sevilla. And once they do, they, of course, want to inject cash into the club to turn it into a competitive club, bring it back to its old glory days. And one of the steps that they have envisioned to turn in Sevilla into a competitive club again is making Ansu Fati their flagship signing. So Sevilla could be the next destination for Ansu Fati, which again, I think Ansu would be very would welcome this move. His father has said that Ansu would like to play at Sevilla. Again, they're from there. That's where Ansu came up through in the academy before joining La Masia. So we'll have to wait and see whether Ansu ends up at Sevilla or Monaco. And of course, my question to you is, where would you like to see Ansu? Sevilla, Monaco, back at Barca? I don't know. You guys let me know down below in the comment section. Anyways, that is all. That is all for this video. I know I did not do a podcast today. Today was Memorial Day. For those of you who don't live in the US, it's a holiday. So, of course, I was out all day today enjoying my day off. I just got back home like 10 or 20 minutes ago, and I decided to do this quick live to bring you the news. But tomorrow, Tuesday, is not podcast day, but I will be doing a podcast. So tomorrow, Tuesday, there will be a podcast day to make up for, well, today's podcast that I missed due to the holiday. Thank you guys for tuning in. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment. I will see you guys in tomorrow's podcast. And as always, Visca Barça.